Hey everybody, welcome back to this live episode of Think Business. I'm really excited to have Doug Miller, who is the CEO and CTO of Brightworks Group. They are leaders in cloud and digital transformation for mid-sized companies. Doug, I've been really looking forward to sitting down and talking with you because, we're all living through COVID right now. And, March 13th came and everybody's world was turned upside down. And so I want to take a second and just kind of tell you as a business person, as a business coach, what I had seen up until that point.
Yeah.
I had seen many companies who were stuck in 2005 or stuck in 2008. Companies who were trying to figure out how to build a remote flex time piece of their business, but couldn't for 1,001 reasons. I'm sure you've heard many of them. The millennials entering the sales force and studies showing that they're going to occupy 75% of the global workforce by 2025 and really demanding more balance, flexibility, work from home. And many of these companies that have been around for 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 years were kind of like, that's just not how we roll. That's not. And yet in Silicon Valley, you saw companies running like this, where people were dedicated and hardworking and working remotely. They could live anywhere in the world. They had unlimited vacation time. Now enter March 13th, the whole world begins to change and everybody has to be current up to 2020. So my apologies for taking up too much airtime, but I just felt like I wanted to kind of set a foundation of then enter your company, which is almost 10 years old.
Right.
And you are in the cloud and digital transformation space. And so I would think that every company in the world needs you or don't know they need you.
Yeah, that's it, right? Yeah. We saw in business probably 5 years of IT transformation in 5 months.
Correct. Maybe even 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the number of companies that, there were so many things that companies didn't think about, right? We would talk to people prior to all of this, just as you were talking about, and they'd say things like, no, we're set up for remote. We have some VPN capability. We have things like that. But what nobody really ever considered, was, it's a whole different thing.
It's a whole different thing.
Everybody goes home.
Right. I just want to comment on one thing, and that leads me into, which is going to lead me into a question. The comment you said, companies, people didn't think about it. And I don't think it's that they didn't think about it. It's that they didn't even plan for it.
Right.
Right. And so, I mean, and in their defense, no one thought things would ever be what they were.
Absolutely not.
But now everybody's got to have a plan B, everybody's got to have a plan C, and everybody's got to have a plan D. And regardless, because we're seeing companies like Ford Motor Company, Facebook, Google, all moving to a remote environments, regardless, post-vaccine, they're talking. And so talk to me now about a company who is not cloud-based, who is not set up to be fully remote. And where does a company need to be thinking not only today, but 18 months from today?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the core of it is, we talk a lot about concentrating on developing an approach that allows your team to work safely from anywhere.
Yeah.
You hear a lot about remote work. You hear a lot about working from home, and both of those are important. Certainly, there's going to come a time where people are traveling again and working from hotels and Starbucks and conferences. But we're not going to see the office completely disappear either. There are people that are going to work in offices. I think the big difference, as we look at 12 months, 18 months, 24 months down the line, is people are going to work from all those places.
Sorry, go ahead.
It isn't going to be that they're going to be at home all the time or remote all the time or in the office all the time. They're going to be multiple places.
Right.
Sometimes they're going to come into the office because they need that collaborative space. Sometimes they're going to work from home because you've changed your office. It is a collaborative space and you don't have space for everybody to work there. So there are a couple of things you need to start considering. Yeah. One is, do you have the technology that supports a work from anywhere approach? There are a lot of key technologies for that. And you know, we could geek out and I could play engineer and talk about the specifics of those. But that's not really matters. What really matters is that number one, you're starting to build a strategy around it. And number two, that you're putting in place the culture and the workplace practices that support that, right? It's not enough to go, yeah, we're going to make sure everybody can work from home and we're going to change the footprint of the office if you don't change your culture.
Right.
You mentioned those companies that said, you know, hey, that's just not how we roll. I had a conversation with a company a few weeks ago that was talking about, you know, hey, we're going to send most of our workforce home. They're not going to be in the office anymore. And I said, oh, that's pretty cool. And this person said, yeah, we're even going to the point where we're starting to talk about requiring people to have a certain level of internet bandwidth at home. Mm-hmm. Because one of the problems they had and many other companies had were, you know, that home connection is okay for occasional use, but when it's you and your significant other and your kids are home and homeschooling and somebody's streaming Netflix, that small cable modem connection can't handle it.
Right, that changes everything.
Mm-hmm. So they said, hey, we're going to start requiring our employees to have a certain level of internet bandwidth at home. And I said, okay, are you going to start compensating for them for that? And this person said, oh, no, working from home's a privilege. Wait a minute. 18 months ago, you could make that argument. 18 months from now, you cannot make that argument.
No.
There's a disconnect I'm finding in many companies who still have a historical impression of what they're going to do. And you hear, you know, CFOs who are going, hey, man, I'm going to be able to reduce our real estate footprint by 50%. Look at all the money we're going to save.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because you bring up something really interesting. You know, culture and a tentacle of culture, mm-hmm. and updating budgets, and you know, looking at expenses and looking at investment versus expense, and looking at employee morale. Right. I hate saying the word employee, but team morale.
Right.
You know, because I think some companies are so short-sighted. I'm not surprised to hear what you're talking about, because they'll say, well, it's a privilege working from home, which, by the way, many people, I mean, I have a painter here, my 2 dogs barking, my wife's in the other room holding the dogs, my son's on the kitchen table,
right.
My daughter's in the other room, you know, and we have painters walking in and out of the house, you know, and so my point is, you know, for the $50 a month per employee, you're going to see companies who don't subscribe increase turnover tremendously over minimal amounts. Mm-hmm. And so what do you say to these companies? Because when you're talking about cloud digital transformations, it is so much more than that. It is about the world in the cloud and what that looks like from running the culture, not only managing, but expense/investment.
Right. And that's why when we go in, we talk about, look, this isn't just you can't just turn around and go, hey, you know, go talk to our IT guy.
Right.
It's not just the technology. The technology is necessary, but not sufficient.
Right.
If there isn't buy-in from across the board, right? We need the CFO in the room or the controller. We need the business owner, the CEO, other executives. We need whatever you're doing from an HR perspective.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to understand what the implications of this are and start to think through, hey, if we start doing this, what's that really going to mean?
Right.
We work on an ongoing basis with most of our customers because they don't work with these tools across multiple organizations and multiple environments. So they don't see all the things that we see, right?
Right.
So what we try and do is we try and work with them, not just on a project thing. It's not a, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to help you do this, and we're going to go away. It's a, look, you're in a different place. We need to work with you on an ongoing basis. And part of that is what we call a technical alignment process, where on a regular recurring basis, we're basically doing kind of an audit against their technology and how they're using their technology. Now, some of that is obviously very technical, but a lot of it is process and culture driven.
Yeah.
And policy driven.
Yeah.
We're asking about things like, do you have a mobile device management policy? Because a lot of companies don't. And, again, it's changed. When everybody was going to be in the office, I'll give you a very concrete example. Everybody's going to work out of the office, and we're providing you a space, and we're providing you with a network, and we're providing you with a desk phone. Now you're not, and we're relying on you to have your own phone and your own phone service. And we're going to demand that you get company email on that device and you get other company information on that device. So now we're going to turn around and we're going to say, hey, we have to have the ability to control what's on that device.
Right.
There is a whole world of non-technology stuff there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's about having control, and the team and the person on the team feeling like they have control, they have some freedom. There's so many tentacles. You bring up so many important points, not only as a business owner, but as a business leader.
Right.
So you're, it's I love the way your brain works, because it sounds like you're able to really go in and shape the undercurrent of what it can happen if they choose. When I'm 48, so when I was a kid, I read Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
If you want if you want to do this, go to page 10. If you want to do this, go to page 15. And so, that's what you're talking about right now.
Right.
And hopefully people are seeing the long game instead of the short game with consequences that of at the end of the day, turnover and the clients that pay for it at the end of the day too.
It will, spill out into customer and delivery issues because you've got turnover in your staff. You can't build any continuity. Not to mention that if you don't do this stuff right, you're going to end up with security problems.
Right.
You're going to create breaches. You're going to expose personally identifiable information. You're going to run afoul of PCI requirements. There are potentially business-ending events that, and I don't want to scare people, right? That's not our approach, but some of the consequences for getting this wrong are business ending.
Yeah.
You have to think through much more than just everybody wants a silver bullet. If I just sign up for this cloud service, it's going to take care of everything, right?
Right.
But it's not. It again is necessary, but not sufficient. a business is a complex mechanism or organism with a lot of moving parts. If you're not taking the time to think about all the potential unintended consequences.
Yeah.
And that's what we spend a lot of time doing. I mean, when my wife and I first got married, she said, man, sometimes you're such a downer because you're always thinking about how things can go wrong.
Yeah.
And I said, it's not that I'm trying to be a downer, but this is what I get paid to do, right? Is to think through.
Yeah, you're being realistic. It's interesting. You're a CEO, so you own your own business, and you're also a CTO. And a lot of times CEOs see the gray, right? CEOs are the visionaries; they see the gray, CEOs see the gray. CTOs are black and white.
Right.
And so if you, and it sounds like you do, have the brain to see black, white, and gray, then you can be very multidimensional in how you not only run and grow your business, but how you advise your clients. And so as a business owner, how has that helped you as a business owner, and especially in today's market, when it comes to figuring out how to adapt and pivot quickly?
And that's a lot of it, right? Is being open to, I think the first key is you have to be introspective enough,
right,
to be willing to take in all the signals that you're getting from your customers, from your prospects, from your team, from your partners and allies. It's very, very easy when you're calling the shots to decide that you have the answers.
Yeah.
Right. Having sufficient introspection and the ability to stop and say, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
Okay. And take in those inputs. But the black and white piece then
I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
If you can't say I don't know everything and you think you know everything, that's a bigger problem.
Oh, it's huge.
Right. I see that in companies a lot right now. Mm-hmm. And it's about and I think you and I are on the same page about this. It's not about the big things, it's about the nuance and the small things that make a huge impact, either positively or negatively. And so when you're advising clients on the nuances of where to pivot, move their business, etc., how are you getting them to raise their awareness when it comes to the small things?
Yeah, some of it is having a process that focuses on that stuff and it being a repeating process, right? Yeah. So that technical alignment process that we use, they start to realize, hey, these small things that you guys keep calling to our attention, when we dealt with them, problems started to go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it couldn't have been you.
Right. But you got to get concrete with people about that, right?
Yeah.
There has to be a visible outcome that they can say, look, we addressed this. We started to deal with this. We made this thing happen, and things got better, right?
Right.
But unless it's why I think the coaching thing is so valuable. That's the point of a coach, is to bring that stuff up, to keep your focus on it.
Yeah.
And too many people don't have that. They get into the comfortable place, right, of, hey, I don't have to hear any of the things that make me feel bad.
Right. Well, it's a lot of work too. I mean, you're talking about the work I do as a business coach, the work you do when you go into companies, in a way the same, just kind of different, different lanes. But it's a lot of work to actually to work with a coach, you got to want to grow, change, evolve, and to do what you're doing as far as shift a company to to a cloud and digital transformation. You got to do the work. So let's talk about your ideal client for a minute, because people who are listening right now, who's the ideal client, and then what's the path of moving cloud and digital, transformation, Doug?
So while we work with some smaller customers, our ideal customer probably is in the north of $2 million in annual revenue. They're probably somewhere between 100 and 5,000 employees. We have some customers that are up on the upper end, and we have probably most of our customers hover somewhere in that 100, 200 employee range, maybe $10 to $20 million in revenue.
Yeah.
And one thing we have found, and it was a little bit of an epiphany to us over the last few months, is that our ideal customer probably has more than a single location.
Mm-hmm.
Now, interestingly, what's happened with virtually every business, even if they really only had one location, they're now a multi-location business.
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody's out. But we're really, really skilled in helping companies overcome those challenges they get from, we've got a branch over here, we've got a branch over here. There's little silos of data. They have on-prem equipment and infrastructure that's not consistent in all the places. One of the drivers is we talk about 3 Ps and 3 Cs, right? So if they've got a purchase coming up, right, we can help a lot with that. If they've got a productivity issue, and again, we often see this in multi-location businesses, that it's really hard for the business owner or the CFO to get information from the different locations. Or if that person is traveling, maybe they've got they have to go to a remote branch, and then they can't do their work because they can't easily get back to the infrastructure and data and applications that are at the central location. If they have just flat out pain, we see a lot of companies who either have an internal IT function or they're working with a managed services provider, and the focus is very tactical.
Yeah.
That doesn't really work. And then the 3 Cs are, number one, do they have a complex environment? Which is what we kind of just talked about, right? Particularly multiple locations. Are they subject to some sort of compliance regime?
Yeah.
A lot of our work is with highly regulated companies, which has now become really a difficult scenario. If everybody's at home, then you've now suddenly got problems with the networks that they're crossing, and are they using devices that have the necessary security in place? And so we work a lot with that. And then the final thing is CAD, believe it or not. We do a lot of work with companies, and again, this has become extremely relevant, right? How do you deal with a company that has to do a lot of CAD work, particularly 3D CAD work, and they've had to send all their employees remotely?
Yeah.
That expensive $5,000 CAD workstation that's sitting in the office, what did you do? Did you pack it all up and send it to everybody's house?
Yeah.
What about file transfers? And there's a lot of issues associated with that.
So the best thing to do is for companies who are in those shoes to give you a buzz and see where there's a fit. But to me, it's critical that it happen. quick speed round, Doug.
Mhm.
I love everything you had to say today. Quick speed round as we finish up, and then I'll let you tell everybody how to get a hold of you. Favorite book and why? Favorite business book and why?
Favorite business book and why? I think probably Whale Hunting is my favorite business book because it really helps you move your perception of what sales and marketing is about.
Yeah.
From a very tactical to a larger strategic.
Perfect. I haven't heard of that book. I'll check that out.
Cool book.
Best piece of wisdom you've ever received.
Best piece of wisdom I ever received. I don't know that I've got a single piece.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is that the most dramatic piece of wisdom or course of wisdom I ever experienced in my life was that somehow between the time I was 18 and 22, my father went from the dumbest man in the world to the wisest man in the world.
That's awesome. That's awesome. One thing people need to do to finish 2020 strong.
Don't be paralyzed.
Yeah, well said. Tell everybody how to get a hold of you, Doug.
Best way is through our website, which is brightworksgroup.net.
Okay.
And you can also feel free to reach out and connect to me on LinkedIn, and our company is on LinkedIn. We share a lot of content both on the website and LinkedIn, regular stuff. So feel free, reach out. Love to have more connections.
Good.
And share some of that.
Good. Doug, it was a pleasure. I loved hearing everything you had to share today. I like where your mindset is, and I know you're doing a lot of great things to help companies increase their awareness and shift their mindset to get current into 2020 so they can really attack and grow and scale their business through the next decade with, your cloud and digital transformation solutions that you have for them. So I appreciate you being on the show. It was a pleasure getting to know you. To everybody who's listening, thanks very much. And that's it, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Hey, that's great, John. Thanks so much.
Let's keep in touch for sure.
Absolutely.
Right,
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.